Alrighty, hello every folks and good morning. Welcome to a little post-completion wrap-up here on Together in Battle. I wanted to throw some thoughts out here after completing the game for the first time here. I'm already working on a second campaign, and yeah, we will eventually be doing videos or whatever else of this whole thing. It is a real fine game, and it's one of these cases of what I love about the indie scene, especially when it comes to SRPGs, because they have a tendency to try the stuff that nobody else is going to risk. Okay, they know what people are into when it comes to these games. They know that when a game is being judged ultimately, the games that have a tendency to stand the test of time are not necessarily going to be the most pretty or polished or whatever else. They're going to be the ones that did something cool and put their heart and soul into that shit. And that is what we're seeing here. All right. So I got to say, first of all, once again, thank you to Craig Stern for actually reaching out as far as this one is concerned. Because not only that, they have been on the ball. Like, there's a lot of very oddly specific things that came from, as always, playing on a Steam Deck and stuff like that. There's a weirdly specific control issues from having a controller and a mouse input happening at the same time. You wouldn't think that would cause too much of an issue, but having both of them permanently activated does cause a lot of bizarro jank. Anyway, I have been sending in report after report after report on all kinds of oddly specific things, and they're always just like, yep, fixed it, patched is already up. Like every single time. On top of adding features, like for example, it sounds like we are going to end up getting Final Fantasy Tactics removed noses at some point, so I'm excited about that. I really was not expecting that to actually get a "yeah, we'll get it done" answer. But anyways, let's go ahead and get going here. So. We're not gonna say go watch the other two videos. We're gonna retry a little bit of ground as far as what this game is, what it does well, and why you should play it. But first and foremost, what you have to understand here is that this is a little bit of a simulator kind of thing here. Okay, you got a little bit of everything going on. You got a Fire Emblem style map. You got very isometric RPG type of role play mechanics. You've got very Final Fantasy Tactics Advanced vibes as far as your available classes and as far as limitations of classes to specific racial types. And you've got extremely into the breach type combat mixed with a good mix of everything from FFTA to your tactics ogres to everything else, along with an adaptive story of sorts that is very like a mix between a Battle Brothers and Mass Effect, a little bit of a, I don't want to say like quite like a tactics ogre kind of thing in here, because it's like there's not necessarily a gigantic deep like background, somebody's got reasons for doing stuff throughout multiple different chapters of the game type of narrative going on here, but it is one where a lot of people are lying to each other in a lot of fun ways, and trying to figure out who's lying, who's scamming you, who's just genuinely trying to help. That's part of the fun here. There's a lot of nice kind of grounded realism between, like, yeah, that one street busker over there is genuinely just trying to train his team by putting you through a bunch of like little mini gladiator games. You've got that one guy over there that's just trying to rip you off. You got that one guy over there that just ripped off that lady for her life savings, and you got that one lady over there that will save you from bankruptcy at the cost of taking your team's name. Like, there's just a lot of stuff always going on. There's a lot crammed in here. And so to that end, let's go ahead and talk about what I always end up talking about from the very start here, which is going to be the actual character customization, because this is really where it all starts. Okay, this is these characters, like the characters that you see right here, these are going to be the custom list of people that I've put in here, and there's something like a 10, I think it was like 10 or 20% chance for one of them to pop up in the random character pool every single time that we go and look for recruits. They may potentially show up as enemy gladiators. They may potentially show up as potential recruits. Apparently, they may show up in random events or something. I'm not entirely sure how all of that ends up going, but you have a lot of stuff here that'll tell you how the game actually judges things. So, for example, characters will interact with every event that you run into. From anything from their physical traits to their background job to I'm pretty sure that there actually were skill checks in certain situations as well. On top of potentially building up romances with different characters, on top of sometimes their personality will determine what they end up doing. So, like, let's say somebody that's a soldier might run drills more often. Somebody that is, let's say, a bounty hunter over here could potentially be doing that job in the background. Somebody that has a vindictive personality may just spawn a side quest for you to go hunt down somebody that that they think wronged them. Somebody that is a con artist might be ripping somebody off in the background. Somebody that is a dancer gets the combat ability to go twist somebody around. Somebody somebody that's a ventriloquist can go throw their voice during a fight. There's a lot of that sort of IRPG level of really nitty-gritty stuff between somebody's background, personality, whatever else, that determines a lot of what they can or can't do during fights. And that tends to carry over to events, to fights, to everything in really interesting and novel ways, okay? So to that end, let's go ahead and get this started. I should also probably point out there's a campaign editor, so, you know, there's already some people that put some technically existent campaigns up there. There really isn't too much, obviously, because it's new. But either way, there's a full-blown editor. Like I saw, there was when it came to people that were throwing together campaigns for Telepath Tactics, that was the one that came before this. I saw that he actually had put together an entire like design bible of different commands and stuff for different mods to do things. So like they have their own kind of description for how everything should work, what all the functions do. It's just really freaking cool, you know? Let's see. Oh, we scared away the deer. Okay, fine, fair enough. Yeah, whatever. Go kill it, I guess. But okay. So here's the general gameplay loop for those that missed the first few videos. You basically have a couple of days or a couple of moments throughout the day, a couple of sections to go and do whatever it is that that you do. Every one of your characters, whether they're random or customly created, will have different events that they will attempt to do. You can, let's say, order somebody to go clean up the camp or go deal with some stuff. Like right now, I'm pretty sure our I think we've got one person that's down sick. We've got one... Oh, good. She did actually end up cleaning the camp. I was going to say our camp is kind of messy. I should have ordered somebody to go do that, but I forgot. We've got some people that are injured, but everybody will attempt to play out the day to whatever their backgrounds and preferences and how their day went goes. If somebody's injured, they may potentially just kind of rest early. If somebody had a great day, they're you know in great condition or whatever else, they might just go ask somebody out or something. They may potentially go into town and start pretending to work at an orphanage because they're actually a con artist. There's any number of different things that they might potentially be doing. And hell, in some cases, they'll just come up to you and say, like, hey, you know, I went shopping, I found a discount on this, that, or the other, do we need this? And they'll just help you with shopping or whatnot. But every one of these characters, they will not necessarily tell you everything about them, but you pay attention to the stuff that they do, and essentially they will continue playing out those personalities. You'll notice that somebody maybe is a bit of a jokester. They might potentially not get along with somebody else. They might potentially help you out of a situation because, let's say, a circus recruiter came by and they're like, dude, our clown just got shot in the face. We need somebody to go be a clown. It's like, hey, wait a minute. My healer? He's too busy pissing off my tank right now, but I'm pretty sure he'd be a pretty good comedian. And sussing out these little kind of intricacies between your characters is surprisingly fun. But then when we get into the actual combat, this is a fascinating mix of so many different things. Again, we've got very sort of like Into the Breach type mechanics in terms of the actual like moving people around, in terms of how much space you have to work with, how much you can interact with the terrain. You've got a lot of interesting mechanics that come up with your characters' racial abilities and stuff like that. So, for example, let's say we have in my first campaign there. I had a situation in which I had a character that was a Darkling, which are basically like these, you know, that black orb thing that you saw at the very front there? Yeah, so those guys are kind of ghosts, but not really. And so in their particular case, what they do is that they can actually teleport, and that's just kind of their normal racial thing. The thing is, though, that you can mess around with different combinations of different race abilities, different class abilities, different character abilities, on top of, let's say, somebody reads a manual to go and change the way that a skill works. So, like, let's say somebody is a swordsman, right? And so that swordsman, which is going to be like this guy over here, let's say they end up getting the ability to double attack, okay? So that's all well and good, but they get that double attack ability, and now let's say they read a manual that's I think it was called something like just keep it going or something, and so they read that ability and it's like, okay, you get the ability to keep on acting after using a double attack. Let's say they use another, they gain a few other levels as a swordsman. It gives them the ability to use a quick attack, which doesn't end your turn. Let's say they go and they keep a item on them that gives them a bit of extra energy, which I don't have on this guy right now. And so they're now able to essentially spend a whole lot of their energy to, let's say, run up, double attack a guy. Actually, let's say they read a book on leadership, or they were a born leader when you ended up recruiting them. You now have a case where, let's say, they'll have the ability to learn how to inspire somebody to take a second turn, just like Smile Toss from Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. And now suddenly, okay, they're taking that extra turn. That other unit is also a leader, right? They end up passing the ability right back to the first one, who then goes and takes another several turns, popping more pills, just like going along like an absolutely deranged, psychopathic, stabbing drug addict everywhere, going and attacking friggin' 15 times around, and you can get super nitty gritty with this, with all kinds of different combinations. But the thing is, you never quite know the canvas that you're working with. So even when you have these custom broken characters, however you end up putting them together, you don't know if you're necessarily going to get, let's say, those types of items that will allow you to pull this nonsense off. Let's say you might. Let's say you might find yourself in another position where, like, you didn't get the book. Maybe they came with a terrible weapon. Maybe their weapon broke in the process. Maybe they're somebody that's just kind of incompatible with those abilities. Maybe they don't get along well with somebody else and they just can't fight properly with the team or something. There's all these little considerations that give your characters a lot of agency. And I asked the dev, like, how much of this stuff you actually had control over, and they're like, no, you are intentionally not meant to control a lot of this stuff, because the premise of the game, the whole kind of design thesis of this whole thing, is just letting your people have agency, letting them feel like people, So, either way, that is just, it's so cool to me. I love that from so many different perspectives there. And on top of this, I should probably mention, I failed to mention this, I always over-mention it, I feel, in the previous videos, but you might have noticed that there was that little... Here, we'll go ahead and wait till the end of the turn there. You might have noticed that there was that little dialogue icon next to the custom character thing, because you can actually give them all, custom dialogue and whatnot. So, like, in this particular case, every time that Leon ends up killing somebody, he will end up going and quoting one of his Resident Evil 4 lines or something, So that's just kind of fun to see. Or let's say, in this particular case, I didn't even get into, let's say, like, when it comes to your skills, you not only can get skills from, let's say, training somebody as a particular class, but you can also train them as multiple classes, allowing them to retrain as whatever, whenever, allowing them to pick up different weapon proficiencies, different armor proficiencies. Like, you wanted a heavy armor healer or something, like a, heavy armor healer with explosive crossbow bolts or something. You can build that out as you carry along, and as you customize all of these different characters, your builds can just get super weird. And even when you're going and recruiting replacements, let's say somebody dies, because your characters do have permadeath available to them, you actually have full control over that as well. Like, if you wanted to just basically play story mode, if you wanted to play it a bit more serious, if you wanted to, let's say, if you wanted to have it even be more difficult, potentially. Actually, do we want to... Here, you know what? You go this way. You can't take your turns out of order, by the way. I wonder if we can maybe pull you this way. Yeah, no, your path's blocked. Alright. Worth a shot. Worth a shot. Yeah, I don't think there's any way we can make that work. Alright, whatever. I was going to try to pull them that way in order to attack this one, but that ain't going to happen. Do you have a split by chance? No. Alright, whatever. I'll just go ahead and have you start marching over this way, you start marching over this way, and we'll call that a turn. But either way, this combination of things, on top of, let's say, randomized ability, or randomized items giving them different abilities. Like right now, part of the reason that Mr. Leon over there does so dang much with his knife is because he's not only taking a huge bonus on account of being an assassin, but he also will take an additional 50% because of his specialized knife that we found at the store. But again, you don't have to get hyper sweaty with this, because this applies in all directions. You've got your guys that are able to do this. You've got enemies that will be coming in with different abilities. You've got items that'll be spawning in here. I should probably even mention the item mechanics. If again, just kind of going back and reiterating from last time. But you've basically got what I was hoping we would see in Tactics Ogre Reborn in terms of the actual item system, in which you actually are able to not only pick up the items, which Reborn did add, but you're also able to instantly add them to your inventory and, do interesting stuff with them. So that's pretty darn cool. Okay, let's see. Let's go ahead and... Actually, I should probably point out also, like, as far as different backgrounds and things like that, this lady is a ventriloquist in her off time, so she's able to throw her voice to distract somebody at a distance. So that's what I was trying to do over there. Or let's say you've got somebody else that might be like a dancer, they can spin somebody around in order to switch places with them. But it just gets so granular with how many different things you can do with these different characters. Like you saw over there, my cavalry unit happens to carry a satchel charge with them, because you can even use items as equipment as well. So like if you wanted to build in equipment into the repertoire, you can absolutely do that. Anyways, that looks like it's probably going to be our turn there. Let's go ahead and lance you. Hopefully it doesn't take too bad of a counter. Yeah, it's just a 5. You'll survive. And then you need to break through that bush and then hopefully get in and support these guys a little bit. But yeah, so everything from combat mechanics to interpersonal character drama to just sitting around and, custom building stupid characters and whatever else, you can have a lot of fun with this. And it's one that is definitely, definitely very replayable. And yes, Leon's back to 1998. So yeah, absolute wonder. Now, as far as those different racial types I was talking about earlier, the reason that I actually brought it up is because of how much it ended up mattering as the campaign progressed, because you not only have your gladiatorial campaign, not only have your main story campaign and stuff like that, you actually have a bit more going on, kind of in the background there, because you also, let's say, have an investigation happening, and you can potentially fail that investigation right away by just not memorizing your own code name. So you potentially can see yourself screwed right then and there. I assume I happened to remember it, so that ended up working out nicely. But like, it's just cool to see that immediately there's already kind of stakes getting added to that whole thing. But on top of everything else. You've got things like, let's say, building maps. Like one of those things that certain Fire Emblem titles did really well was interior maps, allowing you to play through different interiors, giving you interesting hallways to fight through. And that's what we saw here too, where let's say there was one of those missions that had a case where you're supposed to be collecting evidence. There's several of those, but like one of them, there was somebody that was about to go throw something in a furnace, and so there were a lot of different options. Hunting down the people with the keys, breaking down doors, and kind of attempting to breach in that way. Or, like, for example, what I ended up doing is I ended up seeing the guy that was about to go take that stuff over to the furnace. I had a ghost warp through the walls. And how many times did we play through something like Tactics Ogre and thought, like, man, I really wish that this warping mechanic had something more to it. It's just strictly worse than flying in every way. Why? And again, one of those things that I always kind of quietly wished for ended up being, well, given here. Where as I was playing through, it turns out that, yeah, you could warp your ghosts in through the walls. They could go block somebody off. So, like, that ghost in question was a class known as a hard shielder, which is an advanced form of cleric, allowing them to put up physical barriers as kind of like boulders in the way, right? And so he ends up going and blocking the way in multiple different directions, essentially blocking off anybody from moving anywhere. So this guy that's supposed to be collecting... Oops, I thought I muted it there. So this guy that's supposed to be collecting stuff and putting it in a furnace wasn't actually able to get there. He turns around, he tries to go report to his boss, and he can't. He ends up having a hard time getting there. He eventually reaches his boss, and gets the stuff that he's supposed to be burning there. But by that point, it's way too late. They're both surrounded. They're both stuck. And so I have one team going and breaching in through the side entrance, kind of blowing through all the random goobers over there. I have another guy that's another two that are currently attempting to surround those first two NPCs I was talking about. This ghost is still holding this hallway. Somebody else is running around collecting loot. Like, there's just such a beautiful amount of things going on in every one of these maps. And this is not just story maps. There's random battle maps that were very similar in that same way. So yeah, really enjoyed that. I mean, hell, there was one map that just felt like the absolute antithesis of what Triangle Strategy was doing, in which there was a fight that was clearly meant to be absolutely impossible, as far as I'm concerned, to actually win unless you happen to fully play the map out properly. And so I was basically screwing around. I wanted to see what would happen because I want to point out I ran into a bug that has since been fixed in which I was experiencing some events kind of out of order. So I had a team that was extremely overleveled, and so I ran into this sort of like jailbreak scenario that happened. And so as I was going through, I was attempting over and over to kind of clear out everything in this jail. And I have a case where I've got Canopus who's basically like one-shotting 3 units at once. Like, how hard could this possibly go? As far as difficulty is concerned, like, surely there's no way that this is a losable scenario in any capacity. And sure enough, they end up getting overwhelmed. The B team is sitting there in the background, attempting to hold a hallway while the aces end up getting overrun, getting pushed farther and farther out of the building by this tide of various random units. Like, they're sacrificing hordes of their own guys just to basically bash my own guys against the wall because they're doing the same thing that a challenge runner would do. Essentially taking use of sort of like fixed damage mechanics to make up for the fact that they don't have the stats. Like, I loved seeing the AI actually pull that stuff around, that they were throwing their own guys at me using a telekineticist in order to do damage. Like, dude, that's insane. Okay, and we're back. Apparently we're just going to have that on every one of these videos. Anywho, so yeah, like, as far as that jailbreak map, it was really cool to see that, yeah, even as we were falling back, I found a way to cheese the map and just kill off insane amounts of units for tons of extra experience and whatnot, but it didn't matter, because eventually you ran out of time, and it was just like, yeah, these people are just going to keep coming. You see even more and more and more showing up outside. You're forced to retreat. It didn't give you a chance to cheese out the entire map. It's like, no, you clearly lost. You're done. Get out of here. And seeing that commitment, especially when you've got a sort of Iron Man type mode here, I love that. It worked beautifully. It was an absolutely excellent thing there, and what I love is how well it cascaded together with multiple different events, because I lost the aces of the team there. They were out recovering for a while, almost ended up dying. I had several casualties ending, coming up from the team. I had several rookies that suddenly went from rookies to absolute aces just on account of holding that hallway. But then the next day there was sabotage from another team. There was a bandit raid on the camp, meaning that we had to deal with sort of like the B team holding off this bandit raid from the camp. There was this other sabotage that was going on. And then in the middle of all of it, there's one of the events that has happened in a few different cases where somebody approaches and they're like, you know what, you've got a tournament fight coming up. Just kind of throwing this out there. We'll pay you this much if you just decide to go, maybe not win it. Just throwing that out there. It's like, dude, beautifully executed. All of this stuff just sort of like randomly coming together, this confluence of events where I've got like essentially 4 separate squads ready to go at any given time. They're all getting worn down. You've got different factions going and like sabotaging the team in different ways. And the fact that it can constantly surprise you with all of these different like backstabs and new events and new things all over the place. It plays out beautifully, and it weaves this stuff together over and over and over in all kinds of cool ways. So loved it. Absolutely loved it from start to finish. And even with a campaign going longer than it technically should have, because I tried to complete both campaigns on a single playthrough, and I did manage to do that, I will say both of them played out pretty darn well. I did end up getting what I think is the good ending, and it's certainly doable. And in fact, I was sure it was going to play out a bit of a different way, because I definitely did not succeed in all of the events, but everything, just like I was saying I loved about something like Tactics Ogre there, one of those things that always kept me coming back to it is that it has that certain sauce, that it, like that little granularity, where you didn't have to do everything perfectly, you didn't have to do everything right, you didn't have to do the golden route over there, Triangle Strategy. Yeah, I'm sorry you didn't notice the mirror on the wall over there. What a shame. No golden route for you. But no, you can still get there in a reasonable manner. You get different allies along the way. You get different people on your side along the way. You get sort of a different variation of those ending outcomes that felt... I I'm trying to. I want to say it felt very New Vegas-y in that particular way, where you don't necessarily get like you're gonna make it easier. Like you can potentially, as far as I've seen, get a good ending even if you screw up a bunch of stuff along the way, but it's gonna be way harder. And so I think I got about 2/3 of the way there on that kind of initial Iron Man run there, and that felt good. That felt great. Played it real nice, so I loved that. And yeah, like again, the surprises just kept coming. I don't want to spoil anything is the thing. They were so beautifully executed in so many different ways that I don't want to spoil what they did. Like how often does that come up? That you generally are just looking at the game and just like, I want to tell you why this is cool, but I can't because you gotta experience it for yourself. And yeah, it doesn't look like the prettiest thing in the world. Like I will say, I personally would have preferred if the Spriggets ended up looking, having a bit more definition to them. They do look a little out of place next to the other guys, but the way that the different races ended up playing out differently, the way that you got your guys that are able to teleport through walls, the other ones that are able to fly, like Canopus being a born leader there, being able to give everybody additional turns while flying, the lizards being especially good at like parrying and counterattacking things. All of that stuff continuously ended up playing out better and better and better as stuff went on there. So yeah, I love to see that. I love to see the interactions between these characters, their backgrounds, their professions, their classes, and things like that. I loved constantly seeing this thought towards the sort of little stuff that you wouldn't normally think about, like how much all of your team is potentially eating, to the point where I ended up having a replacement team of robots basically for everybody. To the point where I ended up actually overspending on a lot of equipment, due to the fact that our main repair guy ended up getting killed partway through the campaign, and up to that point he'd been repairing everyone's weapons, so I kind of got taken by surprise and didn't actually end up fully picking up on just how much work he was actually doing keeping everybody's stuff going. Seeing those cases where side quests were resulting in manuals that allowed people to modify their skills in different ways, give them new proficiencies. Seeing these situations where like we ended up having a gigantic drop in morale. That situation I was talking about earlier in that arena, we had a case where we had multiple story events back to back, where like it wasn't just that first initial loss. It wasn't getting the camp raided, losing a bunch of money to that camp raid. We had a case where several units were injured. We couldn't get them to the hospital, which ended up resulting in some casualties. Some of those casualties were instant. Some of them were over time because they just ended up getting infections. We had cases where like I couldn't end up going there because in the middle of all of it there was a witness that was necessary for part of the story, and in order to go and track down said witness we had to go like right now basically, so couldn't go to the hospital a second day. Ran out of food because I was expecting this arena fight that was in the middle of all of it to be the day that we would go back and get restocked and everything. Stock for 2 days in a row, so everybody's starving. Morale is utterly destroyed between the casualties, between not eating, between everything else, and it's just like it keeps on building and building and building and building, and every step of the way there's interesting off ramps in all kinds of different directions. So many different choices to be made to try to deal with all of it. It's just a thing of beauty, really. Like, this is procedural generation in its absolute element. Like, this is the kinds of stuff that you would see in little golden moments from things like, Dwarf Fortress or things like RimWorld or whatever else. But it's done here constantly, tightly, providing enough randomness with enough control to just make you constantly just want to bite into that next day. Just keep it going and keep it going and keep it going. It's great stuff. It's great stuff. Like these cases where, like, let's say you want certain people to meet up and do certain things, right? So, like, in this particular case, I've got like Leon and Sunita here that mentioned potentially, potentially there's something there, right? And so if I could get them to, let's say, meet up and discuss things with each other, then yeah, we might see something going on there. But Leon is currently out in bed. The person that he's interested in is going off making friends with somebody else. I mean, we don't know that they're potentially looking for, let's say, another aspect of their life, but who knows? Something may happen there. maybe people would end up being resentful because their injuries caused them to potentially have a missed connection somewhere. Maybe they end up blaming somebody for something that happened along the way. Who knows? There's, again, a lot of different ways for stuff to play out there. So, this amount of just like fresh new stuff happening every day, seeing your characters doing the stuff that they do, it feels very, very nice. It feels very fresh. It feels very cozy. And it's one of those reasons that I keep going back to this one. I've got a bunch of stuff that I need to go and do some first impressions on and whatever else. And every time I turn around, it's just that meme of that dude looking back. It's like, hold on, there's more TIB over there actually. So yeah, like hell, giving people stylish stuff in order to improve their morale. Like it's Don't Starve or something. And what's funny is that you actually again have those backgrounds for characters playing into this, where let's say you have a character who's a tailor, right? And so let's say that tailor would end up modifying people's equipment to presumably look better, or let's say you have a character that's constantly having. Actually, can we even give this to this guy? No. Here, let's see who can use this. Let's give that to you. You look like somebody that could use a bit of a morale boost. Why not? But again, we see a little bit of everything here. We get that like almost like Felsiel-esque customization. It's not quite there. They are adding more stuff over time, but you still see quite a bit of quite a large amount of customization. One of those little quiet things that feels odd to point out, but like due to the setting, a lot of the characters that you end up custom making might potentially stick out from the characters that were there. This is actually something that I've seen come up with a few sort of procedurally generated type of systems where they may potentially stick out as not being from that region. You'll notice a lot of your local characters look like they're sort of Indian descent, as it were, because that's basically what this place is, give or take. And so I kind of appreciate that consistency where people look like they are where they came from. And additionally, you've got things from like let's say from people's backgrounds, their beliefs, or whatever else, that additionally will be represented as far as their characters are concerned. And what's cool is that you actually have characters kind of coming to you to see if you were paying attention to what they were up to. So like let's say like right now I'm just having everybody do some manual labor in order to build up some money here, without letting them get injured. But like in the background of all of it, say somebody's constantly cracking jokes at other people's expenses, then yeah, if the circus comes by looking for a replacement, you might send them over. If somebody comes by, let's say you run into a fight in the street, who do you go and spare to go deal with that particular issue? Let's say you've got some people that will just have personal events that they'll just ask for leave for. You'll have some people that will continuously try to rip you off. Let's see. I think there's some sort of mechanic that wants to speak with you. We've been talking about a lot of mechanics. What are you? Traveling mechanic? You're competing in the tournament? I'm selling golems. Nothing beats a golem. They're tough. They don't eat your food and they never get sick. Yes. Gimme. Golems, please. Yeah, golems are expensive, but man, are they worth it. Because, like, yeah, they pay for themselves over time. You can constantly put them into manual labor jobs, and they don't care. They don't care. They'll work forever. They're just a robot. Like, yeah, that's going to cost a pretty penny, but it's certainly worth it. But yeah, no, I had like 8 or 9 golems by the end of my first campaign. Of just like, they don't take any money, they don't take any of that, and people keep regularly getting distracted talking to the robot rather than each other. I'm sure there's something to say about cell phone culture there, but yeah. But yeah, the mechanics kept on going, the interesting skill interactions kept on going. The interesting mechanics of seeing characters mourning the characters that were lost. It keeps on going. It keeps on going. Keeps on going, and it still kept delivering. It still kept delivering from start to finish and straight into a new campaign. Like I never even saw that mechanic event the first time around, so we're already seeing new stuff, and I'm already like seeing messages of like, here's a bunch more like random tiny bugs that were fixed. Here's a bunch of new mechanics that are on the way. We haven't even gotten to the whole like Magic the Gathering system because it has its own in world board game, which we have or card game rather. It's actually pretty darn fun. It's just like simplified Magic the Gathering, basically. But yeah, this is the like the gameplay loop of the thing. It just keeps you going, just like another day, another day, another day, another day. And now that we actually have a throwing guy, and now that we have technically we only have one character with a satchel charge. I can't do my favorite strategy yet, which is Golem plus satchel charge plus a explosive bolt, because you can basically. And basically what happens is that you can like have somebody set down a satchel charge, you chuck it into an enemy group's face, and then you hit it with a firebolt and just explodes in their face. Really nice way to open things up. Not to mention you can use it to block walkways before actually doing so, so like there's a lot of play as far as that stuff is concerned. But yeah, no, this is definitely worth the price of entry. There's a lot to love here, and if you want to customize your own stuff, you want to make your own stuff with this setting, I'm sure you'll love to know that there is, a custom campaign type situation that yeah, you can sort of set up your own campaigns. It sounds like there will be quite a bit more to go. I forget if I mentioned this because again I kind of had to redo part of this, but like when it came to Telepath, I don't know how many campaigns were out for that one. But what I do know is that when I was looking it up, there was just like an entire design document of just like, here's how absolutely everything works in the system. Here's how you mess around with it. Here's all the like different coding stuff you need to know. Like it gave you the tools to go do whatever it was you wanted to do there. So anyway, so my voice is getting kind of tired here, so that's kind of about that. I just wanted to say that, yeah, even after completion, it is still an absolutely hard recommend from me, and yeah, really, really good stuff here. So that'll be about that. Y'all have yourselves a good one. Take care, and I will see you in the next one. All right, take care.